What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. We've teamed up with Hayboxing for another instructional video, this time with the Hailstorm. We're going to be taking a look at the spur gear and drive gear and also the differential to show you how to change out those parts to get you back up and running. Alright guys, so to get this one started, we're going to just pull out the manual here that came with your Hailstorm. And if we go to page 41, this is where the parts are listed. So your spur gear, drive gear come as a kit, and the part number for that is 18111. And then your differential, your complete differential, comes right there as part number 18012RR. So those are the two part numbers you need to reference if you're going to be changing out those parts. And what we're going to do is we're going to show you guys how to access those parts to begin with, and then we're going to show you how to change them out and put everything back together again. Alright, so first thing you want to do is pull the 4 body clips. Put those aside. Pull the body off. And this is where we're trying to get into, is right here. I also will pull the battery retainer, the clip on there, and just let's get that out of the way. Next thing we want to do now is, there's your gear cover right there. We got to get that off. We got to get this off. We're going to start by taking the shock tower off here on the back. We'll start by taking the one side of the shock off, and you'll see why in a sec. No need to take any more than the top screw out of one shock here. We just take that screw, put it aside. We just put that shock to the side, and you'll see why in a sec. We're going to get these 4 screws out that I just talked about. There we go. Now that's released the shock tower. And since we took that one shock off on the top there, we're able just to move that right to the side like that, out of the way. So that's quite nice. Next thing we want to do is these top link here, these 2 top links, those need to come off. So we're just going to unscrew those now. And now I just flip those kind of out of the way, like so. And not to worry if your shafts come out, they're only going to come out of the differential there anyways that we have to change out. So there we go. We now have full access. And what we're going to do now is we've got 2 screws here to take out, and we've got 5 screws here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1 down in here is 5. Let's hold that up for you. These 4, 1 there, and these 2. So 7 screws to come out there now. There we go. We can pull that cover off now. And there's our differential. Very easy to pull out. Now I'm just going to pull in a piece of paper here so I can not get everything greasy, but the differential, that's it, it's out. And according to the parts list there, the differential comes as a complete unit. So I don't think there's any need to be pulling this apart. You buy it as a complete unit, you replace it as a complete unit. Alright, so we'll put that aside there. Differential is out. Now, spur gear and the drive gear here. We can see a bearing here as well. We've got to get that out. Now, we don't have to release the motor necessarily from the motor mount, which is here. I don't think we need to do that for this. I'm just going to flip it over. When we take a look, these 2 screws at the back here on the bottom, those need to come out. And now that those are pulled out, show you what's going on here. Now that those are pulled out, this actually home motor assembly will lift up, I believe, along with the spur gear. And try to get in behind the bearing. There we go. We were able to pull that drive gear out now, and that bearing should just slip off there, no problem. Yep. Pretty easy. Put that down. So now you should be able just to pull that right out. There's your spur gear out. Easy to change out if needed. We can also just take this whole motor assembly now and probably, there we go, leave it mounted, leave the motor mount attached to the motor. You can see the bearing right here. Well, that bearing should be able to pop out as well. From the back side, just pushes out, no problem. And there we go. And if we were gonna, that's all there is, guys, to change it out. Everything's apart now. We don't really need to do much more than that. Okay guys, now we got everything apart, we're ready to put our new parts back in. So we're going to show you how to reassemble everything here. First thing I do, easiest thing to do, is throw that bearing back into the motor mount. Next thing, we want to actually take notice that, show you here, the drive shaft here has that flat spot on it. Now there's a flat spot that lines up with the drive gear. If that flat spot doesn't line up, you're not going to be able to slip the drive gear over top when we need to put that in. So keep that in mind. You got to look for that when you're reassembling. Next, we're going to throw the bearing onto the drive gear. Slips over, very easy. And we're going to throw the spur gear now, the drive gear through the spur gear. Now that only goes on one way from the one side. So that's, again, easy. So that's back together. Next thing we have to do is get that drive shaft going through the center of the bearing there. Now from the back side here, I'll try to show you. We just lift up a bit, kind of just get that motor mount kind of over top there. We're not putting any pressure on anything, and there we go. We're good there. And keep in mind that we still have that flat spot we got to pay attention to. Now I could pull that drive shaft forward a bit, and we might do that. Gives me a little more visibility here, and we can lift up and slide the spur gear over top everything, or slide that drive gear and spur gear assembly over top, and just let it drop back into place now once we get it over top there. The only thing that's a little difficult here, which is not too bad, is that bearing fits very tight over top of the drive gear, but we've got it in there now. Now before we throw it back together here and screw it back down, I just want to make sure everything's meshing, and it is. There's no resistance. If I do that, you're in good shape. Next thing we need to do, guys, now we got everything as far as the spur gear, drive gear all lined up, meshing nicely with that motor. We're going to hold it, we're going to flip it, and we got 2 screws that we need to put into the bottom side here to hold the motor mount. Magnetic screwdriver again. Just makes things a little easier to do this. So at least we'll get that 1 screw in. Now we're not going to screw it in all the way. Once we have that 1 screw, we can let go. Get the 2nd screw in here. Again, not snugging it up yet. We want a little bit of movement if we need it. Differential sold as a complete unit. We're going to drop it in as a complete unit. Gears go on the right hand side if you're looking at it from the back side, like that. And it just kind of, you don't need the pressure, don't put any pressure on it, it just goes in. If it's meshing nicely, you'll know. No problems there. It's good. So that's all good now. We're good there. What do we need to do is, before I go any further, I'm just going to add a little bit of grease in there on the gears, so we don't need to do anything else with it at the moment. Just put a little bit of grease, and that grease will work its way in once we have it all back together and start using it. Right, so next, guys, we're going to throw the differential cover on. That's the first part you want to go on, right like that, only goes on one way. 2 screws go in the back of it there. So drop these 2 screws in. We're not going to tighten them right up, we're just going to get them in there and just lined up and a few turns in. Okay, now we're going to get the spur gear and the motor cover there. That, again, only goes on one way. We've got these 2 holes on the back side here line up with 2 holes that are on the differential cover we just put on. So slide that over top. Now the 2 holes here that I was just talking about, they're the longer screws. Just kind of slip those in. And again, I'm just going to turn them in, but we're not going to snug them up yet. Perfect. Now we've got 2 screws here. Those line up with the mount, or the motor mount. So get those lined up. Just turn them in, again, not tight. You always want a little bit of movement until everything's lined up so that you can adjust it. Because if we tighten something up here, it might not be able to line up here. Okay, next screw on the side here, right down bottom. That's the last screw. Let's try to make it so we can see it here, guys. Put that screw in. Now, I could have taken everything apart here, but for reality, we don't need to. We're able to do the job by only taking off the minimal amount of pieces we need to. So now the bottom, remember I didn't tighten up those screws. Now we can tighten those up. Let's get those tightened up. And those hold the bottom of the motor mount. And these two right here go into the top of the motor mount. Let's tighten those up. And then we'll do the other 3 screws here, the 2 that go into the housing for the differential. Tighten those up. Tighten up that last one there, and now just the 2 front ones on the differential here are the last 2 we need to tighten up. Okay guys, now we got the differential, spur gear, drive gear, all the housing back together, everything snugged up. We can get this back end back together now. Alright guys, we're going to wrap this one up. That's the high boxing Hailstorm. Very easy RC to work on. We changed out the differential, we changed out the spur gear, the drive gear. We showed you how to take it all apart, put it all back together, and everything works great. If you like this video, make sure you give it a big thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, I'd really appreciate it. Hit that subscribe button before you head out. And remember, don't be a stranger. See you on the next one. See ya.